April Fool's Day, huh? All right, so here we are sitting on Friday, April 1st. It's April Fool's Day. No joke, we're back with Representative Charlie Kimbell, who looks like, Charlie, you made it home again on Friday. That's 2 weeks in a row. We're just shy of 5 p.m., so that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It reflects kind of the week that the House is in. We're waiting for bills to come over from the Senate, so we meet as long as we need to, but if we don't get the bills coming over from the Senate, we don't have a whole lot to work on. Mm-hmm. So we get educated on different things. We look at bills that people introduce, but we didn't take up in case in the next session, the next group of legislators want us to take them up next year. And we just try to meet with different agencies and people that have economic and commerce and economic development issues. But yeah, it's nice to be home during the daylight for sure, even if it's April Fool's Day. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, are you still doing? Is your economic development working group still meeting? And are you?
We are.
Okay.
We're meeting on Thursday mornings at 8 in the morning, and we continue to talk about things in the legislature, such as Act 250 reform and where it is in different bills that are moving from the Senate over to the House, and other things such as the Forest Future Project that is in the House, and now we voted on it. It's now sitting in the Senate and trying to see if they're going to take it up. So we're just following all those types of bills. We have a lot of housing initiatives around in that, and so that's the time. This is the time of year when you're just trying to keep track of what is actually still moving. Something is parked, and it might be parked permanently, and so we're trying to figure out what's still moving, and that's what we're working on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's still some irons in the fire in addition to the omnibus bill.
Yeah. And this year, this week, our committee, because we didn't have a whole lot of bills to take up that we had to act on, we took a field trip. And we took a field trip up to St. Albans and Essex. In St. Albans, we not only visited a very local coffee shop, which is really great, and then had a presentation from the city manager and the mayor, and took a tour around their downtown area where they've had a tax increment financing district. The city has invested a ton of money in the infrastructure between roads, sidewalks, buildings, and has taken on some debt in order to finance it. But the transformation in St. Albans is really remarkable. And the buildings, facades, and the commercial activity that's going on, and the new housing that's been created. So they've really had a city manager who's really a deal maker. And it's made the difference to have someone who is actively going out and pursuing new deals and using city monies to do it. And he was talking about there's 4 pillars of why municipalities have an edge over private developers. One is that they've got a longer term horizon in order to pay it back, 30 years or longer. They're talking about generations, not just a 7-year return on investment. A second is you look at the ROI measured not in terms of just financial means, but also societal means. And how is your community benefiting from it? Another is risk tolerance. A city can take on more risk. And then the third is just cost, or fourth is just cost. They can borrow money at the very lowest interest rate. So it's really interesting to have someone who is actively involved with that, and then trying to figure out, well, how can another town use that same approach? And you have to have both a willingness to take on that level of risk and the resources to do it. And a lot of towns don't. A lot of towns are just like, we want to stay within our lane, and that's what we're doing. But if you've got someone who's got an ambitious plan, there are some tools available, and it's kind of St. Albans has not turned down a bond vote. Some towns have, but they have not, and it's just incredible to see what they're doing. I think $50 million in debt is what they have now, and it's just a town of 7,500 residents, but they're doing it.
Yeah, and with that economic activity that's been happening, has there been where are they in terms of a population and the demographics? I know a lot of Chittenden County and a lot of Franklin County has seen an increase in recent years, but has St. Albans population been increasing?
Yes, St. Albans town has. Yes, St. Albans city is fairly fixed, so it's confined by its boundaries. But St. Albans town has been growing a lot, I can't tell you what percentage, but they also go down to the Lake Champlain, where they've got a beautiful lake shore. We've got a pollution problem in the bay there because of
Yeah.
the phosphorus. Yeah,
Yeah.
but some call it the Green Bay of Vermont.
And that's is that Missisquoi Bay?
No,
Or
it's
that's
St.
further
Albans
north.
Bay,
St. Albans Bay.
and then Missisquoi Bay further north up by Swanton.
Yeah.
And St. Albans Bay it's a problem in terms of the amount. Yeah, that helps. There's a problem in terms of the flow of water because the lake flows north, but the bay does not have any water flowing through it. So it's really stagnant water, and all the pollution that's coming down, or runoff, I shouldn't say pollution, runoff from the agricultural fields has over decades been putting phosphorus into the bay, and there's not enough flow coming up the lake to wash it out. So it's really just there's thick sediment there. It's going to take a long time for that body of water in the bay to correct itself. Time, some things could be possible in terms of mitigating that, but they haven't found anything yet that really works. But the other things that are going on in St. Albans, which are really great, is we went to go visit the old Eveready plant. They used to make Eveready batteries up in St. Albans, lithium batteries. And it's a huge facility that's gone really underutilized. Peerless Clothing, one of the largest manufacturers of men's suits, uses part of it right now for storage for its suits. And the system of racks is unbelievable. They seem to never end. But another part, Beta Technologies, is that company that is very much on the leading edge of electric-powered aircraft, and they're looking at putting an R&D facility for their batteries in that plant because it's already set up for batteries. There are humidity-controlled rooms, temperature-controlled rooms, and security. And if something explodes, they've already got the walls built for it. So they have to take that into consideration when you're dealing with those kind of chemicals when you're building batteries. So anyway, so that's exciting. Then the Career and Technical Education Center was great. We had lunch there for a chef who's been teaching his students and recognized as being one of the premier chefs in the country for Career and Technical Education Centers. Amazing food that we had, but also toured all the things that they're doing there. And as you know, the Career and Technical Education Centers are amazing in the different programs between firefighter or public safety course, cosmetology, but digital assets, medical programs, childcare. There's amazing variety of programs, and they're all trying to figure out, can they continue to meet the more immediate needs of the employment in the area, because they have to justify that the programs they continue to have are meeting that immediate need. It's fascinating. But then we went to Black Flannel Brewery over in Essex and checked out their facility in Black Flannel Distillery. I was looking forward to doing both of those, and they've converted an old shopping mall outlet center into this performing arts space and craft manufacturer. So you've got those guys. There's another cider brewers coming in, big theater. They're looking at interactive museum, which would be a huge investment of like $23 million. And they think they can bring 600,000 people to that one venue in a year, every year. And that's huge for Vermont.
Yeah. I mean, I know the Champlain Valley Expo is right there in Essex too, and I don't think they do quite that.
I don't think they do. I mean, if you think about the population of Vermont, what, 643,000 people?
That's like putting the whole state of Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I mean, it's not something that I would necessarily gravitate to, but if you think about Disney and think about something like the Boston Museum of Science, they get a ton of people coming through, and they showed that, all right, if you draw a map from Essex and you go out maybe 100, 200 miles, the population within that catchment area is huge.
Especially if the border's really open.
What's that?
Especially if there aren't restrictions at the border.
That's right.
Once you start including Metro Montreal, I mean, that's in that metropolitan area alone, isn't there like 3 million people or something? But
there's a bunch. I'm not sure how many, but there's a lot. And certainly Jay Peak has benefited from that, and they just opened up the border, I think, today.
Yeah.
So people can come across without proof of testing. They don't have to test.
They don't have to test on the way back. Yeah, because that was all on the restrictions were all pretty much all on the Canadian side, because they were requiring the PCR test on the to get back over. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now that's been lifted. So Jay Peak at the end of the ski season is really excited about having people come to Jay Peak this weekend. But
well, I don't know if they're getting snow now. I was at Jay last Sunday, and I got to say, I hit a powder day. It was.
Really?
I think the day they really go would have been Monday or Tuesday. They got probably more than a foot over the course of 3 days. Wow. I think Monday, Tuesday would have been great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy. Hey, so sounds like a really successful field trip, and you know, you saw a lot up north. Let's bring it back down to this district. I want to know what's going on with redistricting. And where does that stand right now? I know there's been a lot of discussion about will your district stay the same? Will it change? And what's the scuttlebutt?
So the bill has passed the House, went to the Senate for the House redistricting. The Senate added to that bill the Senate redistricting. Voted out of the Senate, came back to the House. We voted on it, and there were probably 3 or 4 people in the House that voted against it. Otherwise, passed out of the House. It's on the way to the governor for a signature.
And that's keeping this district or your district the same.
It does. In the Senate district, it keeps primarily the same. Mm-hmm. I think there might be a couple of towns that get shifted here and there, mostly up towards Orange County, but it does stay primarily the same for our immediate area. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's good news to have that in the rearview mirror. Hopefully the governor will sign that. And the other thing that happened this week, that the governor had vetoed the bill or the change to the charter for the town of Brattleboro, the city of Brattleboro, where they had voted to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. We had talked about that, and the House voted to override the veto. The Senate did not get enough votes to override the veto. So it's dead. So that now the Brattleboro is pretty excited about having 16 and 17-year-olds being able to vote and also serve on the city council, and now they're not going to be allowed to. Mm-hmm.
I heard one of the concerns. I just heard VPR did a report on it this morning, and I guess one of the concerns was that 16-year-olds can't. I mean, I guess Vermont statute, you can't. You have to be 18 to sign any contracts.
That's right.
Vermont state law. So the concern is like, how can you have a 16-year-old, 17-year-old sitting on a select board and not be able to sign a contract? But
it's a valid point. And could you have a select board person who could not then enter into a contract? I don't know. So that was the opinion of some of the folks in the Senate, and so it definitely went down to defeat. But it's one of those things where there's another charter change that was proposed for Barrie, and there were some problematic parts of it. It's whether when the voters of a particular municipality want their charter to say something, and overwhelming majority of residents say yes, we want this. Can that as long as you say, is it legal? Then you can say no. And if it's always legal, you can say, sure, go ahead. So it's a strange mix. And one community in particular is using a charter change almost every year to manage policies. So I think it's an unfortunate tact where you can pass that policy and really do it up front and be honest about it, rather than going to the legislature and having to have the legislature approve your policies that you want them instead of you just doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what else do you have for us?
I have a joke for you.
I love jokes.
And this joke comes from a fellow member, and he said, I only know one joke, but here
it better be a good one. If you only know one.
That's right. He said, it's so good, I don't need any other jokes. So this guy goes into a pet store, and he goes up to the counter. He said, I'd like to get an exotic pet. Do you have anything? And the guy says, yeah. Yesterday, somebody brought in a millipede. Well, that's interesting. Well, the millipede drinks beer. That's fascinating. So, can I see him? So he brings up the millipede, and he goes, oh, I'll take it. Like, okay. He's putting the millipede in a box, and the guy looks up and he says, by the way, the millipede talks. He talks. Okay, great. Well, thank you. So he pays for the millipede, takes him home, sets him on the counter, and then he's thinking about it. Says, "Hey, I'd like to go out for a beer. Would you like to go?" Nothing. And he said, "Hey, excuse me, you know what? Let's go out for a beer." Nothing. He says, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Would you like to go out?" And the millipede looks up and says, "I'm putting on my shoes." That's the joke. That's the joke.
Because there's a million shoes. Yeah, that's a lot of shoes.
Yeah, there's a lot of shoes.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 shoes. So
Yeah.
it'd take a while for the millipede to put them on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got, Patrick. I'm so sorry.
Well, I liked it. It's not bad. I was, I am in here in the hot seat, so I was hoping it would be funny, so I didn't have to force a laugh. But I got a laugh out of me. So, and
I appreciate that.
but yeah, if you only know one joke, it has to be a good one. So that's good.
Yeah. So the guy that tells the joke does it. He does it with great skill because it's the only joke he tells. So his delivery's gotten pretty good.
I bet. Well, I'm glad you all have a chance to, actually joke around and have a little bit of small talk as well, because I know you're doing a lot of heavy lifting for our state there, and you get really, I'm sure, down and dirty and ingrained in the sausage making process and the legislative process. So it must be nice to have a little comic relief from time to time.
It is good. You have to. You have to be able to laugh, or otherwise it wouldn't be bearable.
What's the point? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I trust on the diner front, you're still keeping up your regimen?
I am. Last week, can't remember the diner I went to last week. This week I'm headed to Bob's Diner down in East Dorset.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know much about it, but headed there. I hope it's going to be a good time. And I understand that it's where a lot of young people hang out, so I figure I'm young enough, so it should be fun.
Yeah, you'll fit right in.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Although I don't know what constitutes young in Vermont, where like our median age is, I don't even know what the median age is, so I don't want to throw out a false statistic, but
Me neither.
yeah.
We got a lot of old people though. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Vital
last
old
week,
people.
I think I told you about Windsor Diner, right?
No, I almost went there this morning, but I was running late.
Windsor Diner's great.
Yeah.
The waitress was telling me about foster chickens. When people get chickens and they decide that they really didn't know what they were getting into and they need to give them up, then other people will adopt the chickens.
Yeah, and that's what she was serving up?
No, she was just talking about it. I think the eggs came from foster chickens.
Okay.
So I felt better about having eggs from chickens who have found a home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well cared for. Well, yeah, I can relate to that as someone who raises backyard chickens. It's it can be sometimes more than you bargain for, especially when you with the predators and everything else that goes along with it, and buying the feed, and there's a lot to it. So some people get in over their head and maybe take on more than they can, bite off more than they could chew, and end up having to get rid of them. And
No pun intended.
that's it. So, well, good. So that's sounds like I'm glad you're keeping up with that, because it is nice to hear about other diners off the beaten path, and it's free advertising for them. So maybe someday they'll consider being sponsors of community television.
There you go. Yeah, the Windsor Diner, I think, is founded in 1952, I think, from their handle on Instagram. So it's been around for a while, and the current owners are doing a great job with it. So it's good food.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. A lot of exotic things on their specials menu, so I think that's pretty good.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Representative Kimbell, thanks for spending the time with us and for giving us another update, and we'll check in with you. I am actually not going to be able to do next week. I hope that's okay.
It's okay.
So we'll look. I'll try to connect with you before the 15th, so we can set up a time for the 15th.
All right. I hope you're going someplace fun.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be fun yet, but I am going to Utah and try to get in a little skiing and biking.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
It should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that should be fun. Yeah. That's great. Have a great time.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, take care.
All right. Thanks, man.